The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
And digital is always a good thing, isn't it? And when we talk about, you can forget about the old-fashioned complicated stuff. ICA Line has digital channels like their WhatsApp chatbot Leo and their self-service portal, making planning super easy. They even have a retirement preparedness index tool. It helps you calculate exactly how much you need for retirement and gives you a specific target to plan towards. ICA Line is making insurance and investment necessities and not luxuries for a diverse group of people. So find your accessible, inclusive and helpful plan today. Just ask, what's your plan? Check out the digital tools at icealion.co.ke. And we did promise you that when you shop and pay, you win. How do you do this? You do this with your KCB winning card. When is the last time that your everyday payments actually paid you back? With the KCB winning card, every day takes you closer to a major win. Here's what you have to do. Use your KCB credit, debit, or prepaid card whenever you pay for shopping, fueling your car, grabbing lunch, or shopping online. You get a chance to win weekly, monthly, and a grand prize. Weekly winners walk away with 10,000 shillings. Monthly winners walk away with 100,000 shillings. And the grand prize is a holiday getaway to Zanzibar for 2, complete with flights and accommodation. And we're asking you to do this morning. Paying with your KCB card is fast, it is secure, and it is almost guaranteeing you of a win. So don't just shop smart and win big. The more you pay with your KCB card, the higher your chances of winning. So use your KCB card today because it is the winning card. Now, there are folks across the country who have entered into a situation that is quite difficult. And that is with education. We're going to get into that this morning. Joining us this morning is Janet Ouko. She's here today to then help us through this conversation. The Executive Director of Tunza Mtoto Coalition joins us this morning. Janet, good morning.
Good morning.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
How are you doing?
I'm right, thank you.
Karibu sana.
Yeah.
All right. Dennis is going to welcome you to this proverb. We'd love to hear from you.
Mm-hmm.
Today we are in the home of Ibrahim Traore.
Okay.
Burkina Faso, a beautiful country whose gold, they've decided to add value on it. They're big on cotton, and it's decided as well that the judiciary will wear traditional attire from Burkina Faso. He has decided that school-going children will wear uniform that has been produced from material that is Burkina Faso. That has been made by the Burkinabes, right? So this is what the ancestors of Burkina Faso are saying. That which is hard is good. Whatever is easy brings no benefit. How would you interpret that?
That which is
hard is good. Whatever is easy brings no benefit.
Wow. I'm sure the young people will not agree with this because they believe in working smart, not hard. But I think in principle is that at times when you take the hard route, in terms of like there are times when there are hard decisions that have to be made. And if you don't make those hard decisions and insist on the easy way, then in the long term, when you're so beaten and when things have fallen out so much, you might just have to come back to that hard route that you avoided in the first place. And to probably go out of context a little and just seeing what they've done. Have you said that they've decided that there's going to be cotton, their own material to make uniforms?
Yes.
I mean, I went to Ghana at some point in 2012. And that's the time when we were grappling with the issue of very high costs of school uniforms and all that. And in Ghana, they're just doing tunic, some tunic with the local their local fabric, and you go to school. You want to imagine how we have complicated our uniform. That this particular one has got to have pleats that are looking how, and it still costs, How about if we decided that all Nairobi schools will be having this tunic? It becomes so easy because those are people that have really understood what exactly are we trying to do. What we are trying to do is to bring the cost of education to nil, if there can be anything like that. But if we cannot get it to nil, why can't we get it to the nearest possible to zero cost?
Yes.
So I really think that I love that idea from Burkina Faso, and I would implore on the government of Kenya to consider that kind of a thing, because not only does it make things cheap, but also now like provides market.
Yes.
It provides jobs. You can remember like when I don't know when you went to school, but when I did, you could just contact the local tailor. The school could just tell your parents that it is an A-shaped skirt. So the local tailor had a job to do. But now, the local tailors have got nothing to do because schools are insisting that you must buy uniforms from a certain place. So this is how we ended up killing the local tailors. And they're only now patching Viraka. Yet we want to create jobs.
Yeah.
Indeed. And even as you talk about that, I think it comes into a layered conversation whereby this week is a pain point for many. And that it is unfortunate that we are having pain point conversations within a sector that seems to have gone through so many pain points just last year. And so here we are with grade 10 and we are fumbling. How then do you qualify for categorization? To which school do you go to? For those who are being asked to pay up to 400,000 shillings for placement for your child. And if that you're not even, and this is not a fake number, 400,000 bob for placement, and you're not even sure if your child will get into that school in the first place. Form 3s and 4s were being were coming back to school last week and this week. And even with that coming back to school, there are parents who are standing at the gates of certain schools with envelopes in hand, hoping that their child will get a place. Is there a problem, Janet?
I'm not promising that we are likely to get out of that. And I would be very shocked by any Kenyan who was not expecting that we would get here someday. Because this is what we have done. We have refused absolutely to develop schools from where the colonialists left them. You've been listening to the conversation going on about Alliance, about Mangu. And don't worry that the politicians have taken it out of context. Listening to the former deputy president flag out the issue of Alliance. It's really a national conversation, and I thank him for bringing this issue to the fore. But I do not agree with the tangent that he took, because he ethnicized it and he made it look like there are some communities that should not be in Alliance, and attempting to take credit particular people for the existence of Alliance. But here is the national conversation that we must have, is that why haven't we created not even 100 alliances, 10 since independence? Why haven't we created any more alliances? So as we speak right now, there are over 240 thereabout national schools. But even the Ministry of Education will confess that they are not having brush, or they're not having so much competition with the entire 240. No, it's about 10 schools that every Kenyan wants their child to go to. Is that normal? It is not normal. And it cannot be a problem. We cannot pin that problem on the Ministry of Education right now. We cannot pin that problem on that. We can only pin the problem on a lack of planning over a long period of time. So I even saw someone saying that just the other day, the government had put money belonging to the housing project to put up some dormitories, or is it a dining hall, in Alliance. And I was, no. Why are we still putting resources where resources are concentrated? Why do we not stop now and say, we have built one Alliance for too long, we have built one Mangu for too long? Why won't we build something else in Western? Well, because there are schools there as well. But the mentality of Kenyans is such that the quality of education that is offered in Mangu or Alliance is very different from that which happens in any other place. And they are right. I agree with the parents of this country. Because if you go to Alliance today, there is no shortage of teachers.
Nope.
Even when there is no shortage of teachers, the best teachers, the best of best, they actually even poach. The best are taken there.
But what situation allows that to occur? What is it that has created this thing that allows that to occur? Because you would imagine, the way the system is on paper is that this is the the categorization of schools allows an equilibrium across the country, but that is not the case. What has allowed this situation to foster?
For me, I think, and we've said this severally, the day we will dissociate education planning from politics, that is the day that we will say that surely we have attempted to make it. Because you see, even the reason why we would be having C1, C2, C3 schools, in actual sense, that should not be there. Can't we have a standard? Can't we have a standard for a school to be called a school? Honestly, if you see what has been called a school in the past, it's 4 classrooms. Just because there are 4 blocks of brick and mortar, then that qualifies to be a class, and it is not so. I honestly wish, and one day I pray to God that I become a member of parliament, because the one thing I shall surely do, I shall introduce a bill that bars further investment in the already developed schools. Can we develop the now called the C4 schools, which are the day schools? Can't we? What is wrong with putting a state-of-the-art facility in some day school somewhere in Western Province, for example? There is absolutely nothing wrong. But the fact that we do not sit down and carefully plan about our education. Now, let me ask, are we expecting that Alliance, for example, has a capacity of 700 when it is stretched to the max?
Already admitting easily 150 more than it should.
You see that? But there are how many people, how many girls of this country, how many boys applied to be admitted to those schools?
Yes.
There are thousands and thousands. So even when we want to sit here and criticize the Ministry of Education for the confusion that there is, the parents are outside every good school's gate. How would you say that the Ministry of Education has failed you? You cannot say that. We can only say to ourselves that surely, as a country, we have failed to plan. And what is biting me so much is that we can get to a point and say, fine, we have not planned, but here we are now, because we are everything we have been waiting for. We are here and we are ready to start the planification so that 5 years down the line, then we do not have this problem. But no, we are not going to do that.
Janet, you look at the education sector, you talk about the already developed schools, and in terms of quality of education, they get the very best. That indicates or implies to a fact that there are other schools in the same country or in the same locale that are not getting the very best. And one then asks the question, how then are these students, how are these Kenyans able to compete if they are getting different?
Yeah, of course they cannot compete. They cannot compete. And those are the inequalities that have continually been perpetrated or perpetuated by us imagining or lying to a section of the parents, that all of us are the same because we do the same examination. But the preparatory process, the preparation process is not similar. It doesn't look the same, And that's why I'm saying that we need to have a very honest conversation. We must have an honest conversation. And why I feel so beaten is when we politicize conversations that are not political at all. When it took this dimension that leaders from Northeastern Province have not invested in their regions, and is why they're coming to Alliance. And I see somebody coming from Nairobi region joining the conversation. And I'm like, are you even serious? Do you know that you are also excluded? That conversation excludes you. It excludes you. And when you're busy here in Nairobi, holding a leader in Northeastern Province to account for why they have not built schools, show me any alliance in Nairobi here. In any case, there are no marginalized children, like children of Nairobi. They aren't. Because even the good schools that we have here, the Panganis and the Nairobi schools, they are national schools. And by national school, they don't tell people who think that Alliance is in Kiambu, therefore it should admit children from Kiambu. That is not how we build a nation.
No.
We build a nation by having national policies. By, you cannot, and especially what education is and what is education is supposed to do to this country called Kenya. Education is what is supposed to help us fight tribalism. So we cannot, and I want to encourage people who are having
It's
those
an
conversations.
equalizer.
It's an equalizer.
Yeah.
Please stay away. This conversation can only be held in the context of equality. It can only be held in the context of some regions have traditionally, they started investing in education long ago when other regions were marginalized. That cannot call you any better from any other person. In any case, those from Central Province that are arguing that they built alliance, why haven't they built any other alliance?
They didn't.
They
but
didn't.
okay.
It was started
It was
by
the Scots.
colonialists.
Yes.
All right, show us the one you have started. You know that? Because even in that particular Central Province, there is only one Alliance High School. So, I mean, we collectively have run amok for the planning of education for our country. And when we were speaking 4 years ago and looking at children who want to join Form 1, for example, to be 500, as we are speaking today, there are 1 million. So the numbers keep bulging and bulging, yet we do not see serious plans. The only plans that there are, and I really feel sad because it is so insufficient. It's CDF. You know, the ministry has said the CDF funds to construct classrooms. The conversation we are talking about here and the plan we are thinking about that will make sure that we sort this problem once and for all, it is not a CDF conversation. It is an education fund conversation.
Okay.
You know, it's something that will sort the problem once and for all. We are not, you know, when a government speaks to us and says our education plan equals capitation grant. No, capitation grant is not an education plan. It's just how you're telling me today that you have 1,000 bob in your pocket that should do your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Those are pesa ya matumizi. That is what capitation grant is. Money for buying chalk, money for repairing a desk cannot be called an education plan. An education plan is showing us how you plan to absorb the numbers that are now moving to senior schools.
Right.
That is the education plan.
Okay, so the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms was put together for things such as this, because just in the title alone, it was clear that things had gone wrong over time. And so the Reform Party was supposed to put some of these things, but unfortunately, we see things kind of spiraling out of control. To the point whereby a new curriculum, a new education system, as it were, was introduced. And now we see about 1 million students kind of in limbo. You know, and these are the grade 10s, 800,000 or so. These are the grade 10s who are entering now into senior secondary school and have to go into pathways. The selection of those pathways, where they're going to end up. One of the things that the Presidential Working Party suggested when they handed over the report to the president was that the decategorization of schools was going to be paramount. We were going to see that in 2026. 2026 was the year that they actually put on that report for the start of the decategorization of schools. If anything, what we are seeing is an entrenchment of this thing right now, because people are still selecting those top schools. There are some 3,000 schools which didn't even get so much as a period when it came to selection in term 2 of grade 9 for these current grade 10s. So are we making the problem, are we entrenching the problem, or are we looking at getting better? Because this decategorization is what would essentially get everybody on the same playing field. And now that education fund that you're talking about ensures that all schools on the same level have the labs that you need, have the resources and equipment that you need, have the teaching personnel that TSC now is fixed towards that. But we don't see this kind of progression happening. We don't. And if we don't see it now, when could such a thing actually be? That's why we have 400,000 being paid. And by the way, to who?
When I tell education advocates and defenders of the right to education that we must not rest, we must make sure that we lift the political profile of education to the highest levels that it were. They sometimes think that I'm probably being too much. No, I am not. This is not a conversation that you want to have with the Ministry of Education. This is purely a presidential conversation. It's about how have you prioritized education. It's about how are you thinking, how are you thinking as a political party, as a presidential party, how are you thinking about education? And I will tell you, when we say that Mwai Kibaki did phenomenal things, he did not come in and find the way things were operating and operated that way within the mess. No, he rose above the bar and said there was about 4 billion shillings somewhere. Let every child come back to education. That money was not anywhere. This man had a big dream. He had a big dream for education. He knew where the globe wanted education to be. We had just come from 1990 in Jomtien, Thailand, 2000 in Dhaka, and the world was moving towards making education affordable for all. He did not sit to wonder that there is no budget, but he said, no, everything else is going to take a back seat, but I want to do this for education. And he did it. And so what we are saying is that President William Ruto has an opportunity, even right now, to dream big for education. Honestly, let me tell you, we will, even if we get whoever we get for the Minister for Education, in the current circumstances, they will be operating from one fire to the next, Why? Because there is no big plan. Even next year will be worse, because the number of children are even more. The ones that will be sitting their examinations will be more than these years. And we will not have done anything about this situation. How about saying we want to expand, we want to resource? Because even when parents are done haggling for positions, what awaits them is even worse. Because the pathways have not been funded.
No, they have not.
They have not been funded.
We are 5.6 billion shillings has been released by Treasury this January to begin to print textbooks. I'm just telling you.
I said I don't want to operate within the Ministry of Education because it's really you even pity the CS for education, because when you're coming from this mess of placements, you enter into another one. Now I hear junior secondary school teachers are saying by Tuesday they will not be going to work. What exactly is this government plan for education? And let us remove capitation grants from the mouth completely, because we have said capitation grant is the gas cooker in the houses. You cannot keep saying that I am running the house.
It keeps the lights on.
It keeps the lights on. So if you switch off the light, then we have this conversation in the dark. So we cannot say that the plan is capitation. No. What other plan exactly does this government have for education? If the plan is to shift the burden to the parents, because that is what this is.
Yes.
How, in fact, those going to the STEM pathway might not have it very hard, because, the laboratories and everything, the previous system had all that in check. Now imagine someone going to the pathway of the creatives.
Creative arts,
So the studios.
Do we have studios? Do we have theaters?
So let me tell you what will happen. Is that the 600 of you that have been admitted to this school will just be called by the head of the school that you have been called here, we need this, and they get a budget at 20, they want to do a 20 million theatre or something, every parent, 30,000 Kenya shillings. How is it that we are running free education in this country? At what point did the burden of developing schools shift from the government to the parents? And the parents of this country must say, no, this is not our burden. Let this government show us the plan they have for resourcing CBC.
Janet, we talk about having a plan. The Presidential Working Party went around the country, and we talked about the decategorization matter. But you talk about the decategorization issue without having a plan on how you will ensure that other schools, other alliances are in other counties, in other regions, just so we can be able to fight that decategorization. How are we talking about a plan when capitation is not being sent on time, when we do not have teachers resourced to be in school? Payment and permanent pensionable terms has always been a pinpoint for the JSS teachers. Today, we are here talking about 400,000 shillings that is being paid. Yet, even those parents that are paying the 400,000 are not guaranteed of getting those positions anyway.
First and foremost, it's not it's not moral that you can pay monies to be able to get a slot in any school, and therefore that is an issue that the government is supposed first to be dealing with. find out who is selling,
Sports.
sports, because as far as we are concerned, we are told it is a system that is picking children.
Yes.
So we don't know whether that system is the one that is taking money or where else is money involved, because everyone else thinks that it is the portal. And parents are told, we will open the portal, we will close the portal is down, the portal is up. So the idea of parents paying money, that's just a criminal enterprise that is being run by somebody. and really, the government should be able to protect parents, And let me say that the challenges of not having enough facilities are what breeds this sort of evil, because everywhere where competition is this the same conversation we were having when we were saying, can we stop this issue of grading schools?
Yes.
From number 1 to number 100, because now that is what was introducing that, hey, hi, can I pay you $1 million, Bob, so that you list my school very high, so that, when competition is in there, and that's why we have the Competition Authority of Kenya, because when competition comes in, there are several ills, there are certain evils that really come in. But far from that, is that even when we want to talk about capitation and credit the government for releasing capitation this time early,
yes,
we want to wonder, the devil is in the details. This capitation that was released, did you owe capitation in the previous year?
You did.
Yes, please.
Yes.
7,442
Schools were
shillings.
owed
60B.
Schools were owed billions of money. So without a statement that tells these heads that this money is for paying the previous debt, and therefore this year, the only money that actually comes to sorting the liabilities or responsibilities for this year, in my math, is about 3 billion only.
Yes.
Because if schools were owed last year's monies, and this we have said is money for lights and gas, and they expended that amount. So how are principals running the schools, really speaking? Now, as if that is not enough, we have the Kenya National Examinations Council, NEC, that is releasing the KCSE
today
results,
at 9 o'clock.
today,
Yes,
a few minutes from now. And when I look at that institution, by the time they were appearing in Parliament last time, they had zero budget. Zero, like the government of this country had not allocated any money
to NEC.
It took the noise from some of us and a lot of issues, because we were like, you guys, no? Examinations is part of this free-day secondary school package, because it is no point for you to educate a child all the way to Form 4. And at the tail end of it, ask them for 5,400 shillings, and they don't afford, and so they don't sit the examinations, and therefore all these 4 years come to waste, So the Kenya National Examinations Council is also thoroughly underfunded. So a lot of the inefficiencies that you see in the system is because the funding that we're talking about in education is not sufficient. And that's why I am saying, let us not have this conversation with the Ministry of Education, honestly speaking. Can we raise the political profile of education a little bit higher and ask this government, what exactly is your commitment to education? Okay, fair. There is no plan to develop schools. There is no plan. Fine. Okay, about capitation also. You will also not deliver capitation. You will also not send the few shillings that should keep a child in school. You will not keep. When someone stands and says, we have sent 44 billion, as Kenyans, we should interrogate that 44 billion. You have sent that 44 billion now. What you're not saying is that this 44 billion, number one, we have 22 billion debt. The head teachers owe so much, so they don't know whether it is for this year or it is for when. In short, we really must have a national conversation regarding education. And why I want us to have a national conversation regarding education is because this is not subject to any political party's manifesto. It is not subject to any political party's manifesto. It is subject to the Constitution of Kenya. So we refuse to negotiate. We refuse to negotiate about funding education with anybody. We must have standards. We must have our standards, and we must say, you came into government and you found government of Kenya funding education per child to the tune of 22,000. By the time you reduce it to 16,000, you must call all of us for a meeting and give us rationale as to why you are reducing it from 22 and to 16. And the parents of this country, they also must stand somewhere. Parents must stand somewhere. you cannot, bad governance must be fought from every end. But you cannot be the ones who are supporting. When we said, stop these empowerment programs, stop them, because they are moribund, they're not systemic, they're not helping anybody. And the same parents would be the ones who are championing. All right. So just go back. Now we are opening school right now. Go to that kitty of that empowerment money that you are given. Draw from there and go and pay school fees. You know, go and pay school fees. So if you are given 1,000 Kenya shillings, go to school, you're being required to pay school fees 30,000 Kenya shillings. Go and pay there, so that every Kenyan in this country will participate. When we are saying this money is our tax, can it be used in ways that we as Kenyans have sanctioned? And how have we sanctioned? We have sanctioned it through our constitution. We have said our priorities include education, our priorities include health, because that is what we agreed, all of us, a long time ago. But when we allow a group of people to sit somewhere, determine for us our priorities, and when we tell you no, this is not taking us in the right direction, Kenyans of this country will be the ones, they will shock you. But now when it is time for paying school fees, they are, who are they looking at? Let them draw from that motivation kitty. You remember that money they got? Let them draw from there, go to school and pay school fees.
If it's still there.
If it is still there, why don't we agree as a country to work together, support education, defend education, and call out our government when it is spending our resources in manners that we have not sanctioned? And I tell people, you are not going to look the other way against corruption, for example, and then come here and cry that government should fund education. Government cannot fund education when all that money has been stolen and when all that money is in people's pocket.
Right.
So it's sort of looking at it from a global perspective and saying, can we ask for good governance? Because it's only when we have good governance that then we will be able to enjoy our social services such as health, such as education, such as good roads.
Okay.
That's the only time.
A series of questions, and first one, is education devolved?
Education is not devolved.
Okay.
The only aspect of education that is devolved is the ECD.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, it is not a devolved function, right? So that means that its operations, by and large, are in one place.
Yes.
Okay. Is it too much? And I'm asking this because when we start to peel away the layers, Janet, there's a lot. If we start at ECD, which is handled by the counties at the moment, there's still money that's drawn from the exchequer that's sent to counties, and that counties are able to, pay for operations at the ECD level. When we come to primary school, we're looking at issues of teacher shortage. We were told that 100,000 teachers would be hired, 76,000 or so, and they were expecting another 24,000 this year. But then we also find that the majority of those teachers are interns who are looking for P&P terms right now. That's what they're fighting for.
Yeah.
And that's what the reality of the day is. They're saying, if you're not giving us those P&P terms, then keep your job. We essentially don't want it. That's coming from the 100,000 promise. Okay? That's one issue. Then we deal with this placement issue at the secondary school level. We deal with issues of books, again, at the secondary school level.
Yes.
We deal with STEM, which, by the way, science teachers, we are running at a 37% shortage of science teachers in the country. That's another issue. We're dealing with capitation, another issue. 64 billion shillings owed over 5 years. We're looking at 23 billion shillings having been sent out, 44 billion shillings sent. There's a deficit from last year of 7,000 shillings per child, coming to about, 22 billion owed. Some money was sent out, still at a deficit. Well, do you see? And that's just 7 things. The list goes on and on and on. So, as a function of government that is not devolved, is there too much that needs to be handled? And that's why we see the symptoms that are so glaring at the moment. Is it too much?
I think the best way to answer that question is to wonder, are we becoming poorer as a country? Because there's a time I know that a lot of issues had been contained, in a way, and it was looking like we were not doing at 100%. We were not doing at 100%, but there's something that consistency does. If you're at 50, at least when we are drawing the next graph, you should be at 52, You know, even if you're not at 60 or 70, attempt to be at 53, you know. But we cannot be making retrogressive steps. You know, we cannot be making retrogressive steps. And it draws me back to what exactly as a country are our priorities. Where are we putting our money? And that's why I'm saying we should not allow ourselves to start developing new priorities. And especially when I mention those new priorities, I feel so bad to always keep referring to the example that I give for Nairobi, because I will give it until cows come home. I have not believed that it is prudent for Nairobi government to spend 1.7 billion per year on school feeding. That is not, you know, that is not our priority. It's not a priority. Considering those very children that you want to purport to be feeding using 1.7 billion shillings are not even here, you know, are not here. By the time they have finished grade 6 and they want to go to senior school, come and see where Nairobi children are going.
What do you mean they're not here? Where are they?
Nairobi does not have schools.
Yeah.
Okay, I get, okay.
Nairobi does not have schools. So they are the ones who have been called to Migori, they're the ones who are in Kuria, they're the ones who are anywhere. So if any politician is feeling a problem, they should first stop Nairobi children from going all over the place. Show us Nairobi schools. Why are we not developing infrastructure in Nairobi? Why would you sit down and say that I want to spend 1.7 billion in a project that will draw parents to me, that will make people love me? Why are we allowing politicians to use our money as if it were their own? Do we not have frameworks? Do we not have rules for how? Then you want to tell me that we do not have money as a country? No, I just think that we are not very disciplined in directing our money to where the plan should be. You know, and that's why I'm saying, what exactly is our plan? What is our plan? Is our plan to just come back to office in 2027? Is that our plan? If that is your leader's plan, then we must be very clear with him that is your plan. Please draw your plan with your money. But when it comes to our resources, what have we planned as Nairobians? We want to house all our children in publicly funded schools. We do not want half of our children to be in alternative providers of basic education, because they are going to pay money, and they're the same people that have paid you tax. So we want Nairobians that have paid tax to first enjoy the tax money that they have paid. Is that so hard?
Janet, as we talk about having a national conversation on matters to do with education, one asks the question, even at the time when the Constitution of Kenya 2010 was in place and speaks highly in terms of having free and affordable education for all, did we sit down as a country and said, as we are offering this free education, this is the kind and quality of education that we must have? Because it appears to me as if what the Constitution said is what we are implementing without being deliberate on the kind of education that we want to give the students and the children of the Republic of Kenya. That right now, as we're having this discussion, perhaps it's about time that we sat down and said, if it's in Nairobi, how many schools do we need in Nairobi, and how are we funding them? If it's in Kiambu, how many schools are we putting up in Kiambu for us to say that each and every child from different corners of the country can access that quality education that can be found in Mangu, in Alliance?
You know, the Constitution cannot do all that. You know, because we have the Constitution as a guiding document.
Yes.
You know, as a guiding document. Then from the Constitution, we get statutes.
Yes.
From the statutes, we get regulations. You see that? So that the Constitution has given you the broad direction, you know, the true north, that this is where we want to go as a country. So as leaders, it is you to devise strategies of going there where the Constitution has dictated us to go. But what do we have? We have a leadership that knows too well that this is where we should go. But do not attempt to take any step towards taking us there. Why? Because there are no consequences for anybody. And they therefore decide where they want to go themselves. Where do they want to go? They want to come back to power forever and ever. So they want to come back to 2027. So what do? We devise projects that will endear people to us. And at the opportune time, like this particular period, for an example, you will now see we have paid capitation in good time. You know, you had said we do this we are doing this. But honestly speaking, it is only, there is nowhere, because we have not seen our political systems are just so bad that they are not able to hold such people to account. Because poverty has now been used as a currency. It has been used by a currency because we have discovered that you can take a group of people and brand them a name. Like, for example, call them hustlers and chaperone them towards somewhere. You know, that is using poverty as a currency. You can use poverty to tell to tell the parents that I am giving your children food at 5 shillings. In actual fact, it is not 5 shillings, because they have not been told about the 1.7 billion shillings that comes from the taxes.
Yes.
They are only seeing that 5 shillings that they are paying. They have not been told what else, the opportunity cost of this 1.7 billion shillings. And you know what? Politicians know this. This language I am speaking is not for a politician. No, it is not. This language that I am speaking is for somebody who wants to build a country. But what do politicians do? They have studied our people. They are not interested in this language of building the nation. No, they're interested in that language of today. Have you given me 1,000 shillings? It's fine. I have forgiven you all the transgressions that you have committed unto me and upon my generations and my children, and I will vote for you. This is where we are right now. It is very difficult in this country to have a conversation that leads us to where we want to go. Because why? The masses will be fighting you and telling you, no, that conversation is not for now.
Indeed.
For when?
And yet, we have a member of the cabinet who sits as the vanguard of this ministry. Is it an overwhelming position for him? One would have expected that CS Ogamba would be able to streamline, because that's what he's been hired to do. To streamline. In fact, he sat in Parliament when he was being vetted, and he talked about things that he would do when he comes in as the CS, if been given the opportunity. Now he's been given the opportunity, and we seem to have just been able to haggle around issues of capitation and placement without actually structuring the system to work in the manner in which it was supposed to be. I want to ask, should he take the rap for all of these things which didn't start happening in 2024 or 2023? They started a while ago, but they seem to have degenerated to a point whereby you want to ask the question, who's at the helm?
No, I have interacted with the CS for education, and to be very honest and fair, when someone is a lawyer, they are a credible person. That they are somebody who could really interpret things and so on and so forth. So the CS for education is really, and from how he has steered the sector, in my own observation from afar, he's a stable person. He's not the person we've seen every day on press issuing this and the other and contradicting himself. No, he's stable and he is calm. And to give credit where it is due, the gentleman has tried, for sure. The gentleman has tried. And that is why I'm telling you, this conversation is not to be had at the Ministry of Education.
Okay.
There is very little that CS Ogamba can do. He cannot influence where money goes and how money. He cannot influence. Treasury has to tell us, because as far as the CS is concerned, he has given his needs that we need XYZ amount of money. He has given that amount of money. Who deducts? Who decides? No, we are not sending 60 billion to schools. We are sending 44 billion to schools. Who decides? Who makes that decision? It is not him. It is somebody else that makes that decision. Where is that person? That is the person Kenyans must be having a conversation with. Because I know those are the people that sit down and say, all of a sudden, the right to housing has become more important to Kenyans than the right to education. That is suspect. That in itself is suspect. When did right to housing become more important
than education?
When did right to housing become more important than the right to health? You know, those are the conversations that we must be having. And I had the other day, Honorable Sifuna saying, there are things that must be investigated. There are things that must be investigated. If Kenyans want to really be true to themselves, how did health occupy a higher political, housing, occupy a higher political profile than education? How is it we are struggling? It seems like, yet, when the rubber meets the road, saying it is time for politics. It is to education that they will return. It is to education that they will return. So how is it that we are not seeing the value in spending money where it is supposed to be spent? And I wanted to use that to tell you that when you're CS for education, I've occupied a little position in education at the county government of Nairobi. And I know that you can actually be preoccupied because these crises are not being created by yourself. You see, by the time you don't send money to schools, you are creating confusion for this years because you will be receiving calls from everywhere and answering press conferences from critics. You're causing pressure to that guy. How about if the presidency decided to do what is right for education, for example? We could have by now, between the time CBC came on board, we could have at least by now have strengthened a few more schools, equipped more schools. When the parents open, because we shall be in this country, and they're called for the first meeting, I know they will call.
Yes.
And they will say...
they will do that just before midterm.
Before midterm, yes. 30,000, 40,000, 20,000. And that is when Kenyans will begin seeing what we are saying. Because we have seen this thing from afar. And we are saying, we want to have a conversation with this government and the government that will come. What exactly is the plan for education? Don't talk to us about pocket money. Capitation is pocket money. Don't talk to us about capitation.
Janet, so usually when from Form 1 students report before we got to grade 10 now, that they report later than everybody else. They will come to school, that's what we're seeing, they'll come to school from next week. But then 3 weeks later, parents are called to come for orientation.
Yeah,
they are called. What you're saying, as has been the practice even for Form 1s, is that parents will be told how, yes, you know, this is the school fees, this is what comes from ministry. However, we also know that money comes late, or sometimes it doesn't come at all. Okay,
hold it right there.
All right.
First of all, do you know how much has come from the ministry? It's barely 5,000. So you can't even, so 5,000 is what per child.
That's what school has at that point.
That is what school has at that particular point in time. Because what parents are supposed to be paying is boarding related expenses. That's the only amount that parents are supposed to be paying, boarding related amounts. But the point at which now we want to be told that a dining hall costs this amount of money, I will move to court myself. Yes, I will move to court myself because the government of this country must take its responsibility. Pushing the burden of building schools to parents is not going to be acceptable.
And that's why the parents are told at that orientation that what we are going to ask you to do is pay an extra 30,000 shillings.
Yes.
And it's put as part of your school fees.
Yes.
That you will be reprimanded or denied your child coming to school if you don't pay that money. It's not extra or voluntary money.
Yeah.
It's demanded money.
Meanwhile, there is a child who will not go back to that school because the 35,000 will exclude them from the school. Yeah, we have to, actually a determination has to be made. A determination has to be made as to what parents can pay. Because remember, we're having this conversation because every child is not supposed to pay anything from basic education. Basic education, as far as we are concerned, the education in this country is free. But because we have the most boardingized system in Africa, all the good schools are boarding schools. So as much as you'd want to plead with the parents, no, day school is free. Take your child to day school. They will be like,
but this is a good school.
But this is a good school. So that's how parents get boxed into going to these institutions. And that's where now the conversation about money starts coming in. But if we were to be proper, and if the day we will get, read for us that proverb again from Burkina Faso, that not the day we will make hard decisions.
Yes.
Let me ask you, in Nairobi here, because I'm a Nairobi politician, I know schools that are thriving in 1 acre of land, and it's a whole secondary school. It's thriving in 1 acre because it's a community that said, we need a school here. Others are hosted in public primary school. In fact, most junior secondary schools are hosted in public primary schools. Let me
Some are in
ask you,
estates.
Yeah.
some are in estates. Let me ask you, what is a school like Alliance, for example, doing with over 20 acres of land? Why do we not?
There's
why-
agriculture, there's
yeah.
sports
There's football.
fields, there's the agriculture students are
And
farming.
that's why I'm
there
saying
are labs.
we need to have a conversation on the table of saying, how can we make the most use of the land that we have? Go to Uganda. A school, a senior school, for example, has 7,000. Making use of all those facilities to the optimum. But you cannot lock in 2,000 girls somewhere in all these vast estates, and then imagine some other 3,000 struggling in an Umoja secondary school and say that we are going in one direction. No, we are not going in one direction. So there is quite a lot of planning that needs to take place. There is quite of really very radical decisions that need to be made if we want to include every child, and if we want to go the way of saying between now and 10 years to come, we will be proud of the decisions that we make today. But if we shy away from making those decisions now, even next year, we will sit here and agonize that parents, in fact, it will be very bad, because if parents decide to get inside that school and decide no learning is going, I've seen parents asking very pertinent questions here. How is it that my child got all exceeding expectations, all of them straight ones, but they did not get a chance in any of these good schools? They got a chance in a day school in Ukambani. If all those parents came together and they stormed one school and decided, no, we want to be explained to how it is these children that are inside here, some of which do not even have that exceeding expectations, and not our own children. Is that where we want to get?
No.
Because we saw, for example, when Parliament decided we are locking ourselves in this Parliament and we are making decisions against you, guys got in and they had to get out. Is that where because it will get there. You cannot tell me that you sit somewhere with a laptop and put my child in a school in Ukambani and put others in another school. You know, we must have this conversation. Can we standardize all schools so that even when you're having a conversation and telling Muzazi, no, even this school, come and see. So that, because some people, sometimes we get a call from someone, probably they are in Kisii. They don't know what Bishop Gatimu Gadu Girls is. It's a very good school, but because they are in Kisii and their socialization is in Kisii, they want to change their child from Bishop Gatimu to a school in Kisii that they know. But when you take them to the school and they see the performance and they see the facilities, they're like, okay,
This can work.
This can work. So the CS needs to hold the hand of this child who has all exceeding expectations. Take them to that school that he has called them to, and convince that child that surely this is where I want to be. Take that child, take them to Alliance, and pull out all those children and explain to that child, why are you not here? And these children are here.
Yeah.
Get this criteria out. We see it in the open. Get it out. We
And
see
that's
it.
what standardization essentially would be able to cure.
Yes.
That's the conversation that we have, and it's a big one. KCSE results actually being announced or being released in a very short period of time, and that takes us into yet another level, even before we get to higher education. That's a whole other kettle of fish. Thank you for being here this morning, Janet. There's still a lot more. There's still a lot more, and it's a constant conversation. It's got to be fixed.
Sure.
And towards that, we've got to continue speaking about it. Can't be silent. And thank you for not being silent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's 9:02. Conversations continue.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.